Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Tatiana Lee, and I'm a Hollywood inclusionist at RespectAbility. I'm also an actress and a model, and you can't see it, but I'm also a wheelchair user who was born with spina bifida. In our next discussion, we are going to show best examples of representation, and I'd love to bring on some folks that I've really enjoyed watching on TV. Kayla Cromer, actress from Everything's Gonna Be Okay on Freeform. Ramy Youssef, creator, writer, and actor from Ramy on Hulu, and Steve Way, actor from Ramy on Hulu. Thank you so much for you all joining us today. Ramy, I am going to start with you. First, huge congratulations to you on your Emmy nomination. You have 3 Emmys, but 2 one for outstanding lead and 1 for directing in a comedy series. So congratulations to you. What does it feel like to be recognized for your work in such a big way?
I think a lot of the foundation of what we've been working on with the show is trying to highlight voices that might feel small, but we kind of get to realize the scope of where they're at. And so awards can be really random and irrelevant at times, but I think for the work that we've been doing, it's really exciting that a show that's so specific can be recognized on that level, because I think it kind of brings validity to the idea that the core of a production can feel small, but the reach can be really big. And I think that's really at the core of the work that I've been doing with Steve my whole life. We started comedy together, and so we've been working on crafting these things for a really long time.
Nice. I love it, because so many people have that conversation of saying like something that's diverse, that's telling a story of being Muslim, American, and also having a best friend with a disability. People think those nuanced stories can't sell or even be nominated for awards, and you've certainly proved that. So congratulations, and I'm super excited for you guys. So another question, many writers tell their stories and tailor it to make the audience feel comfortable instead of pushing the envelope, and you have definitely pushed the envelope. And you did a great job at it. Like I said, being Muslim American and having a friend with a disability, how did your friendship inform your decision in creating this character, and why was it important for you to have a disabled character and make it a part of the storyline?
I think our friendship is really at the core of the intimacy of what we've been able to craft, and I'll let Steve really speak to this, because I think that he's always really inspired me on a personal level, and I think we kind of really again, like the basis of how I've started comedy and of the friendship I have with Steve are obviously central to the show, but mostly because they've been really central to my life. And I think so much of what we're trying to do here is look at those organic connections, and I think that's what makes them feel real. So even if something feels like on paper it could seem like a trope, but because the intention behind it is genuine and we're exploring real things, it becomes really exciting to do that with him.
Nice. So my next question is for Steve. Tell us a little bit about your role for maybe people that haven't had a chance to see it. And my question is, what do you hope that it does for storytellers, especially for those who don't tell stories about disabilities?
Yeah, I play Ramy's best friend. I curse a lot. I'm atheist. I yell at Ramy a lot. So I'm basically playing myself, which really helps. I feel really special and honored and humbled that, I'm not only a part of this groundbreaking and important series, but I'm able to tell stories from the disabled community that have never seen before. Whether it's about like death, working, dating, sex. They're concepts that many people have feared to really tackle on screen. So it's really rewarding to kind of be that guy to, you know, open those doors. And to be able to do it with Ramy, you know, Ramy, when he's in his writer's room, will call me up and be like, hey, we're going to do this absolutely bonkers idea. I'm just like, okay. And yeah, I'm totally scared out of my mind. But I know that Ramy will do it right. And I know that he'll craft it in a way that really everyone can resonate with.
Nice, nice. I love that because it really takes people in the room to really stand up and say like, this is the story I want to tell, and this is the way it should be told. And I think that is so important. So back to you, Ramy, a quick question that I have. So did you get pushback for not only including a disabled character, but also having an actor with a disability as well?
It wasn't pushback so much as kind of understanding that nobody really knew who he was, right? And so it's like people didn't know Steve. It was like I was kind of writing the Steve character, and before we got to shoot, the network was like, "Who's gonna play Steve?" And I'm like, "Well, Steve." And then they're like, "Oh, who is he? Why don't we know him?" And then it makes you realize that they don't know him because they don't see him do stand up, and they don't see him do stand up because so many of the stand up comedy clubs are not accessible, and it's hard because it's like so much of New York isn't accessible, right? So I would, you know, walk into to comedy clubs in New York that I can barely get into, let alone Steve, right? They're these little like basement-y things that it's like, how's anyone even in this thing? So it's like the architecture of New York City plus, you know, all these things that get in the way of someone being seen, and so there are all these barriers, which is why it's really important anytime someone does have the opportunity to really advocate for someone who is actually in the role that we're writing, you know, because in many ways it is the only way for them to be seen. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of nice because it's a grand stage and you get to be like, well, you know, this is his moment. So I don't care if you didn't see him come up in the club for 5 years, he's ready. And I think that's been a really exciting to see the success of that.
I love that because yes, that is the conversation that so many people have. They say, well, they're not famous enough, you know, to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, they don't have access to the training because of, you know, inaccessibility or just getting the shot, or 95% of the time it's, you know, they automatically give it to someone who's non-disabled. And so there's always these constant barriers. And so it's really amazing to have people that are in those positions to really stand up, like you said, and advocate for us. So thank you. So next, Kayla, what you play a character that I love. You are quirky, you are fun, you are just a normal, everyday teenager who just lives with autism. And I love this character. She's so fun. It's so relatable to me. I was watching and I said, I wish I had this when I was a teenager. Like, this would have made me feel so much better about exploring, navigating being a teenager, growing up with a disability. So thank you for your role and everything that you do and just what you bring to this character. What do you see as the future of disability inclusion in programming?
I want to see, like, definitely more diverse characters in TV. Like, something that I've always said is, like, cast someone in a wheelchair to play a prosecutor, or a little person to play a college professor. Reduce the stigmas, create visibility, audiences to see themselves on screen. We're just not given the chances enough to audition for characters that weren't written to be disabled. I just want to see more diversity in inclusive programming to actually give us a chance to play roles that weren't written for disabled people.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, people always assume that if you have a character that has a disability, it has to be solely about their disability. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like you said, they can be the prosecutor, the assistant, the best friend, and so many other things. And it's like, it doesn't have to be about their disability. It can just be, they just happen to have a disability. So with that, what do you add to the role by actually being on the autism spectrum? And 95% of characters, like I said, with disabilities are played by actors without disabilities. Why was it important that that show casted you authentically?
Let's see, what it brought to the role by being on the autism spectrum is definitely realism, because, you know, I've walked in Matilda's shoes multiple times throughout my life. In some ways, I am Matilda. I've brought part of myself into the role, and so has Josh. He's gotten some of my quirks into the show. Like some of my own experiences he's brought into the show, which is actually really important because it just brings more realism to the character and what some people with autism deal with, especially when they're a teenager. And regarding the percentage, it was the right choice for Everything's Gonna Be Okay to cast authentically. I mean, it hasn't been done before, and it's way, way long overdue. It keeps it real for viewers to see an honest portrayal, and the timing in this era is just perfect to do so.
I agree. I totally agree. Now is the time to really, really push the envelope for diversity and including disability centered, you know, stories and characters, and even within the intersections of it. With your character, I love seeing a young girl navigating the world with autism, and I think it is very much needed. And I've seen some of the people that follow you, and it's like you inspire them so much, and it's so needed. You inspire me as an adult with a disability, so thank you. So no, thank you. So Steve, now that you're a part of an Emmy-nominated project, I hope that your phone is ringing off the hook, and I'm pretty sure it is if it isn't already. What other projects would you like to work on in the near future?
Well, Ramy and I are actually currently developing a show for Apple TV Plus.
Yes.
That's focused around my life, basically. Our goal is to kind of do Ramy for the disabled community, but with a lot less staring and dramatic pauses. But we're really excited to really dive deeper into what it's like living with a disability. You know, and what my family goes through, what my friends go through, and really just showcase as many disabled performers as we possibly can.
Nice. I love that. I love that. I can't wait for that. So you guys more than likely heard it here first. If you didn't hear it already, new project coming to Apple TV. I love it. I can't wait for that. So Kayla, what message would you like to send producers, writers, directors about creating stories and characters with disabilities or working with actors with disabilities?
Okay, let's see. First, actors with disabilities don't know easy and work their tail off literally. The creators casting need to broaden their vision and include people with differences in their projects. It's time to see disabled actors play disabled characters in roles that weren't written as disabled. I've said that numerous times, but that's always what I believed.
Nice. I love that. If anybody has any questions that you would like to ask for any of our panelists, they're here. And if you want to have any questions for them, I want to hear that and what you have. So I had questions about, I guess Steve pretty much answered my question for you, Ramy, too, which was my next question of expanding more storylines about disability and, you know, really making that happen. I was like, I feel like you're going to be known as the guy that like now is just putting all the disabled people on. So
I'll take that. I mean, that'd be, but it's really Steve. Steve's the kingpin. I do what Steve says.
Nice. I love it. See, my friends are like that too. My friends are like, whatever Tati wants, that's what goes down. It's whatever she asks for.
Come on.
It's like,
Come on.
you really run the show. So, I love it. So, Kayla, question for you. What do you hope that kids that are watching this show with you get from it? You know, and what do you hope that they get from seeing themselves reflected on TV, especially young girls?
Um, I really want them to connect with us, to take some time from life and laugh at our relatable talk. Like, you're not alone in life, and that literally everything's gonna be okay. I want them just to relate to all these different characters because, in my opinion, there's just so much realism to all the characters. It's just a lot more quirky, and it's okay to be quirky and different.
Nice, nice. And maybe this question can go to Steve. We have one from our audience, and it says, what does it look like to advocate for yourself, for your needs on set?
I think it's just it's not being afraid to ask for accommodations. You know, there have been times where I was filming and I was really sick, and we were shooting for an entire day. And I remember it was getting towards the end, and I went up to the director and I was like, we gotta hurry up because my body's gonna like explode any minute now. And yeah, they're not gonna be like, no, screw you, get off set. You know, because like no person's gonna say that. And you know, I think it's just really just being just upfront and honest about everything. You know, and it definitely helps to have someone like Ramy advocate for me. But you know, one of the biggest things that um, studios always use as an excuse is that oh, disabled people don't have the stamina to shoot an entire day. Well, I've proven that wrong many times before. But yeah, that doesn't mean that like, you know, I can't ask for like a certain accommodation throughout the day. And if I may real quick,
Mhm.
to draw off what you said before about what else needs to happen, just expanding on what Kayla said, yes, we definitely need more stories where you have disabled characters that are not about their disability, but I think we also need to see more diverse and more intersectional stories. You know, like Kayla and I are both white, and I'm a straight white guy, but you know, I'm not going to tell the story of a black disabled person, of a gay or trans disabled person. So, you know, it took this long. It took this long for someone like me to be on a show like Ramy, but I think we're starting to finally go in the right direction where studios won't be afraid to tell those lesser known stories.
No, and I think that's important. Yeah, because like you said, most of the representation we do see are of cisgender white male. But I really think that, you know, we're just in a day and age where like people like you know, as a straight cisgender white male, you know, to open those gates so then people like, you know, myself and others who are black and disabled and, you know, wanting to work in the industry to get those opportunities because then they're like, oh, okay, we worked with Steve, we worked with Kayla, and it wasn't all that. So then, hey, let's go even further. And I love that. And I really feel like the industry it is moving in that direction. So I'm really happy for the future. So
And I just want I just wanted to say actually one thing to Steve's point from the question in the chat about how to access for how to advocate for your access needs on set, because I think what Steve is really good at doing, and just to back up what he was saying, is he's really good about being clear about where he's at, you know, whether it be, hey, I am feeling a little tired, or whether it be, hey, I do have a cold, or whatever that might be. The truth is sets are used to adapting to something that an actor needs, but the way that Hollywood is kind of rigged is to do it for celebrity. So there are celebrities who we'll come onto a set and everyone is pretty much in full agreement where they're like, it might take you an hour and a half to get him out of his trailer and you might only get 4 good takes out of him. And that's just because he doesn't feel like it. So if you're getting a talent who, you know what, might only be able to do 3/4 of a day, it's worth it because you're getting a story that you wouldn't be able to get without that person. That person is so uniquely qualified. And Steve's not even, you know, look, Steve does all the days we do. He does long days. He's talking about there are a couple of days where, okay, he's feeling something and like, hey, could we kind of like move a little bit? But the point I'm trying to make is even if he couldn't, even if you could only get 4 hours of work out of him, just do that, you know, like figure out how to make that happen. Like have the writing accommodate it, have the shooting accommodate it, because we're constantly accommodating things as creatives, whether we're accommodating the attitude of a certain performer or you're just accommodating, hey, it's raining outside, we were supposed to shoot outside, let's figure out how to move it inside. We're problem solvers. There's no reason why people who are in the position to solve problems aren't putting their attention on making these situations work.
I love that you said that, because one of the points that I love making when I do a lot of work in the advocating we do at RespectAbility is we tell them and let people know, like, people with disabilities, because the world isn't adapted to us, we are natural problem solvers. So you would think that it would be, and actually is, a perfect match, because we're going to help you problem solve in a way that even you production people haven't even thought of.
And don't get me wrong, it's hard, right? Like, it's not easy, but also making anything is hard. It's all hard, you know, so there's nothing about it is breezy. Making a show is difficult. So yeah, there's no reason why we can't collaborate on those, you know, on the ways to problem solve. And you're right, I mean, because there are ways where like we'll be like, oh, I don't know, and then someone like Steve will be like, no, you can get a ramp in here, like I've done it, you know, and you're like, well, I didn't do it, like, you know, it's just like, he's like, no, I've been in the bind like this, we'll figure it out. There is this resiliency that working with someone with Steve I think instills in everybody who works with him.
Nice. I love that. So I have one last question, and Ramy, you can take it away. What response or advice you have for someone who is a showrunner who may have a project and want to incorporate storylines that involve a character with a disability or include an actor with a disability? What is some advice you would have for them, because they may be afraid to kind of touch on that because of the stigmas that are surround Hollywood sometimes? Well,
I think Kayla's point is probably the best answer to that, when she was kind of talking about getting a prosecutor in a wheelchair, just kind of involving people in rules where you're not necessarily having to talk about the disability or about, because I think that the important thing as people who are creating stuff is you have to be really careful to not talk about stuff that you don't know about. So if you want to actively be advocating for people in the disabled community, you need to do one of two things. You either need an organic storyline in which you are involving people who have disabilities in fleshing it out, but it has to feel real to the story. You can't just be doing it to do it. Or do what Kayla said, which is you don't have to talk about it. Just put someone who's disabled in a role and that's it. They're just working at the bank or they're just doing whatever they're doing. So it's actually not that hard if you are doing it from an honest place. I think the worst version of it is trying to force it. Because if you don't have someone like Kayla, and if you don't have someone like Steve, or if we don't have someone like you, Tatiana, then we're just we're almost being advantageous. We're kind of just creating something so we can feel like we're part of some convo, which I think can be really damaging. But there, again, are really two clear options. It's either like do it super organically or just cast someone in a role that you would cast anyone in, and it'll be great.
Nice. Kayla, what are some things that, you think that can be done? And, I asked you this, earlier, but, what are some other things or tips that you think that people can use moving forward?
I think opening the audition room to anyone would be a huge start, definitely, because so many times, we don't get that chance to get in the audition room, especially if we're a known actor with a disability. Sometimes they'll think, oh gosh, all the accommodations, we might have to do extra costs, like a wheelchair ramp, it's probably not worth it. because and lawsuits and everything, if somebody with a disability gets hurt on set, there's just so many things to think about, but they just have to put that aside. They have to realize that we are part of the population. We are part of the audience that watches your TV and film. Like, one of the best instances that I can think of where an actor, from what I understand, kept his disability hidden on set. It was, I believe his name is Robert David Hall. He played the mortician on the original CSI, and he's a double amputee. And during one of the episodes, he got frustrated during a scene and actually threw his prosthetic leg across the room. And everybody was just like, wait, he's an amputee? We had like no idea. And like the whole world was shocked, because that was like one of the first times people were introduced to a disabled character, but in the most crazy way. I mean, like taking off your leg and just throwing it across the room. That is one of the greatest reveals, and we need more moments like that so people can connect with us.
Nice, I agree. Actually, he was one of the first times I saw disability represented, and that was a huge moment. So thank you for highlighting that like moment in disability TV history. So thank you all so much. I want to thank our guests, Kayla, Ramy, and Steve. Thank you so much for this enlightening and just awesome conversation, and all for your thoughts and your comments today.